Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. So behind me you'll find a pretty basic revenue chart, which is just daily revenue by day. And there's nothing wrong with this. In fact, every company and business needs to be able to track revenue per day. But a lot of what we do on this channel is take very basic metrics or KPIs and make them more interesting. So today's focus is going to be changing this chart behind me to this, and we'll be doing this in MySQL together. So the enhancement here is we're still looking at revenue per day, daily revenue, but we're comparing it to average revenue over the last week, 2 weeks, and 30 days. So this is pretty cool because you can look at high revenue days and say, wow, this is double the average or double the trailing average. And just as likely look at poor revenue days and say, wow, this is half the trailing average. So let's go over to MySQL and I'll show you how to do this now. Okay, so every business typically has a revenue transaction table. All we're going to do is aggregate revenue to the day level. So we have the purchase date, and then we have the purchase amount. And let's just add a coalesce, so if there are any nulls, they'll get switched over to a 0, and then we will sum all of this. We can call this revenue, and then we can just group by purchase date. And let's look at a few records. Okay. Now let's round this to the second decimal place. Okay, cool. Now we're going to put this in a subselect and we'll just call this daily. And then we're actually going to copy this and rename the subselect to something different. We can call this historical. And then we're going to join these two tables together so that we will have daily revenue and then trailing revenue, trailing 7, 14, and 30-day revenue per purchase date. So let's very simply just grab the columns from the first table or the daily subselect. And then we also want daily revenue because we're going to take daily revenue and compare it to trailing revenue. And now let's do our left join. We're going to do this on the purchase date from the second table has to be less than or equal to the purchase date in our first table. And then if we think about all of our trailing values, we have trailing 7, 14, and 30. We want to take the largest one, which is trailing 30, and put that logic in our join statement to make sure that the purchase date from table 2 goes back 30 days. We'll do and. Okay, great. So per this join statement, we're going back a full trailing 30 days. And then we're going to add case statements in our select statement to sum revenue over trailing 7, over trailing 14, and then trailing 30. We're going to copy this, and we're going to change this value from 30 to 7. Okay, so let's do a summation here so that we are summing revenue over the last 7 days per purchase date. So as you can see, the purchase date is going to be less than or equal to the purchase date in table 1, but greater than that date minus 7. So meaning it's going to sum revenue over the last 7 days for this specific purchase date. And that revenue that's going to be summed is going to be coming from table 2. And then just to be safe, let's put a coalesce here. Okay. And then all we need to do is the same thing for trailing 14 revenue. And then for trailing 30 revenue, we don't need a case statement. All we need to do is just sum this. And the reason why is because the logic in the join statement is already bringing across a trailing 30. So these two columns here are actually putting a historical cap on the data that's being read in through the join. If we just do a straight summation right here, this is going to represent trailing 30-day revenue per the logic in this join right here. So let's rename our columns, or let's add some naming to our columns. So trailing 7 revenue, trailing 14 revenue, and then we can just call this trailing 30 revenue. And then because it's an aggregate case statement, we need to add a group by. And then most importantly, we need to make sure there's a full trailing 30 days for each of these purchase dates, right? So again, if this is the second or third day that your online business is live, we don't have trailing 30 days. So you have to have at least 30 or more days in order for the full trailing 30 to work. So let's make sure that's working. So we'll do having the dates from table 2 has to be equal to at least a full 30 days. Okay, and then let's run this. Fantastic. The only thing I would recommend doing is let's just round this out to the second decimal place. So we can do this. All we need to do is a comma 2, and then a comma 2 here, and then another final comma 2 here. Let's make sure we get that comma. Okay, great, and this is working because with this demo data and this pretend demo business, the online business launched September 22nd, 2022. So in order to only return dates out of a full trailing 30 days behind it, we start with October 22nd, 2022. So all of this makes sense. So we are ready to officially take this over to Excel and recreate that analysis. Okay, so here we are. And again, because of the having statement, we know we have a full trailing 30 dates behind us. So all we need to do is take these summed values, so trailing 7 revenue, just divide that by 7. Right? And then just take trailing 14 revenue, and then just divide this by 14. And then just take the trailing 30 revenue, and then just divide this by 30. So let's kind of expand that down. So this is money, so make this a $sign. So let's add some, because again, we're interested in comparing daily revenue here, column B, to these columns over here. Let's make that money. Okay, so let's take the last couple of months, starting with July 2024 through September 2024. Okay. And then we want to look at revenue. Remember, this is daily revenue. And that's going to be this with this. And then let's grab our final column, which is our average revenue over the last 30 days. So let me beautify this chart a little bit. Okay. And let me change the width on these histograms. Okay, it's beginning to look pretty good. So again, the blue histograms represent daily revenue, and that's probably the most important metric. But whenever you do analysis, you want to be able to compare different time periods, make it more interesting. So here we're comparing the blue histogram daily revenue to average revenue over the last week, over the last 2 weeks, and over the last month. So this is interesting because it gives a lot more context to some of the extreme highs and extreme lows in our revenue patterns. So again, if you like this content, please continue to like, subscribe, and then more importantly, share. Thank you very much. Everyone have a fantastic rest of your day.